Alrighty. And next round we have another interesting hand here. It looks good, except for a few things that are missing from the hand. First of all, we only have one Kiln Fiend as a threat, no other creatures, but we have Manamorphose Tamir Battle Rage, which is going to make Kiln Fiend a huge threat, and Mutagenic Growth to protect it and pump it up as well. So to enable this side of the hand, we need to rely on our card draw to hit another land. So this hand, I think, is so good and so likely to win. If we do hit our second land drop, it is definitely worth a keep. And we are also on the draw, so that gives us another draw step, although I would keep this on the play definitely as well. And it would probably even be better on the play. And we just immediately peel off our land. No problemo. And another land. So now we've got all the lands we need, so we'll just keep Asuran Visions on top to try and rebuild if, for whatever reason, this Kiln Fiend does not get the job done. And it looks like our opponent is also playing an all-in pump deck, this version being infect, of course. We are similar styles of deck, though. And so we'll deploy our Kiln Fiend and basically hope we aren't dead, of course. And it looks like we are not dead. And here I make a bit of a misplay already. I should have played Spire Bluff Canal, definitely. The thinning of my deck is not even relevant because we put something to the bottom with Asuran Visions, or maybe we shuffled it away. But still, we should have definitely played Spire Bluff Canal. Even though we don't really care about our life total, we also shouldn't really care about the thinning compared to having an untapped land. So we start with a probe to see what's happening. And our opponent's hand is not that great. Noble Hierarch and Blighted Agent as redundancies is not what they want here. But they do have Vines of the Vastwood, which is a tricky card in this spot because it doesn't give hexproof. It gives target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So if I target my Kiln Fiend with Tamir Battle Rage, my opponent can counter the Tamir Battle Rage by targeting my Kiln Fiend with Vines of the Vastwood. It'll basically make it so I can't target my own creature, which is a weird interaction for a pump spell, but previously this was mostly used against Splinter Twin, but it's very relevant in this spot as well. And Blossoming Defense doesn't really have that ability, but it's also a pump spell. So here we want to try and find a way to win through the Vines of the Vastwood. Of course, we're assuming our opponent knows that interaction, as we probably should if they're playing Infect. It's a pretty common interaction if you've played Modern a lot. It's also possible our opponent doesn't know, and we could just go for Tamir Battle Rage and Manamorphose and win the game. So we know there's Lightning Bolt on top. If we had one more mana here, we would actually just win, because we could Manamorphose, draw the Lightning Bolt, bolt the Noble Hierarch, attack, and actually that might not quite be lethal. That would be... actually, no, I think that would be exactly enough spells to be lethal. But yeah, if we had one more mana, we would be able to cycle this Manamorphose into Bolt and then hit for a bunch with Kiln Fiend. But now we have to hope that our opponent just doesn't block here. Because if they don't block, then they'll also die through Vines. Of course, they do end up blocking. And we just go for Tamir Battle Rage here, because first of all, if our opponent doesn't know the interaction, we just win on the spot. And second of all, it's going to get rid of that Binds of the Vastwood, which is a pump spell that could be used to kill us. And unfortunately, our opponent does see that interaction and also draws Become Immense, which kills us. And that is that. Very fast and very bloody. As for sideboarding against infect, so what we do want is going to be definitely Twisted Image for multiple reasons. It not only kills Noble Hierarch, it also kills Spellskite, which is the scariest card in the deck. And for that reason, I think we also bring in Shattering Spree and definitely Forked Bolt. Want to spell for interaction and possibly Spell Pierce, although we might not need it since we're on the play. We might just want to be much more proactive. And for taking things out, I think we want to again look at the Bedlam Revelers and the Snapcasters because we're just trying to go as fast as possible. Interesting to note that the Snapcasters are getting sided out a lot for these fast matchups, so they might not even be worth it in a full play set. So that's probably what I would do for Infect. And then game 2, and we're on the play, and we have a perfectly reasonable hand, although it's not especially lethal in the first 3 turns, although we could draw into lethality, but this is definitely something we're going to keep here. And we see our opponent's hand quickly. And here we're able to just basically go off and deal as much damage as possible. And I actually add double blue mana, thinking I might draw another card draw spell, but turns out I drew Swift Spear and probably should have just split the mana. And see, Thing in the Ice and Manamorphose. So here I decide I don't need the Thing in the Ice because I'm going to kill so quickly with just these Swift Spears and Snapcasters, and decide to keep the Serum Visions. And the Thing in the Ice would bounce my own creatures as well, so instead we're just gonna try and kill our opponent very quickly. And again, Swift Spear to the face. And go ahead and Vapor Snag the higher priority target, Blighted Agent. And we have lethal with 2 Manamorphose and Vapor Snagging the Noble Hierarch. So now we've basically all-in our opponent, just like they all-in us on the play. And now we have to try and break serve in game 3 by winning on the draw, which is going to be tricky because both decks are fast. So here we have an interesting hand. 2 bolts is excellent against Infect, so that's already an incentive to keep, even though we only have 1 land. And beyond that, we have Thing in the Ice, and we can even protect it against Twisted Image with Mutagenic Growth, and our opponent's mulliganing, which makes the bolts more likely to be able to just deal with our opponent's threats. So we're going to go ahead and keep, and see a bunch of Spell Pierces, the Twisted Image for the Thing in the Ice, and 1 Blighted Agent. So our hand is going to match up well against this. I'm actually happy my opponent didn't end up spell piercing this Gitaxian Probe because we desperately need to draw into a land, which we don't even immediately do in our first 2 draw steps. And there's Noble Hierarch, which we're definitely going to Lightning Bolt just because we barely have any mana and we want to start trading for those spell pierces if possible. And there is the savior land that we so desperately needed, and we don't really want a Thing in the Ice because we know about the Twisted Image and we don't want to really mutagenic growth, so we just set up Kiln Fiend, which is going to be threatening by itself. Although it might have been correct to Thing in the Ice anyways. Although, like, if we could have guaranteed flipping it, it would be very good in this situation. But since we know our opponent has Spell Pierce, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to flip it. And our opponent's clock isn't even very fast, so we're happy to just set up Kiln Fiends anyways, because we know our opponent is not even threatening us, depending on what they drew, since we didn't really see any pump spells. But we're still going to just clear up the Blighted Agents, because now our opponent apparently has no infect spells and no pump spells, and they're at 1, which is a good spot to be in. And now we can Snapcaster Lightning Bolt, and our opponent is virtually out of it. They attempt to save the Hierarch, but we offer the trade and offer lethal with Lightning Bolt to their face, which resolves, and they die. So we out-infected the infect deck, which feels pretty satisfying.